Good evening, everyone. Look, I'd like to begin by acknowledging the traditional owners of the lands where I am currently, and that's Jayabul and Jarrawa country in the uplands around Toowoomba. And I'll pay my respects to elders past and present and extend that to traditional owners in the areas where you're joining us tonight. Katherine, thank you for joining us.
Thanks for
Whereabouts are you
having me.
today?
I'm in Yagara and Turrbal country in Toowong, which is beautiful, Mount Cootha. Yeah, gorgeous nature land around and things. So lovely place to be.
And also
Wet
joining
and
us is,
rainy.
it is wet and rainy tonight,
Yeah,
yes.
yeah.
And also joining us is Nigel Lavender. So Nigel is a tour broker for Q Touring. So thank you for joining us, Nigel. Whereabouts are you?
I'm on Jagera country, just north of Ipswich, between Ipswich and the Brisbane River, or Maywar, I should say.
Wonderful. Look, tonight's webinar has a couple of different aims. We're going to talk about what you need to consider when writing for the potential of the final work to be touring, and a little bit about how Belloo Creative approaches discussions and community engagement in the development of their story. We're particularly looking at Back to Belloo, which was a wonderful production premiered last year, and hopefully touring. I think it's touring,
Yes.
but we'll find out more in a minute. And we'll also talk about how designers, directors, performers, and other creatives can influence the writing for touring. Now, the webinar is being recorded and it will be shared later, so we all are aware of that. Now, welcome, Katherine. It's so lovely to have you with us, and thank you so much for doing this. You have such a wealth of experience to share, so I'm sure people will get a lot from this. Before we start, can you briefly introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about some of the scripts that you've written, the productions that you've been involved with across your career?
Well, thank you. I think of myself as a playwright, but I'm also the co-artistic director of an independent company, Belloo Creative, which has been running for 13 years now. I started writing about 15 or so years ago. Before that, I began my career wanting to be an actor, like so many theatre makers, and it took me at least 10 years to realize I didn't have what it took for the acting. But then I started reviewing and spent about a decade doing that and seeing so much wonderful theatre and getting really inspired and learning about what works and what doesn't work on stage. So it was a very good training for me. And anyway, then playwriting beckoned, and that's been an absolute joy to fall into. And to, with writing my first play, finding the people I wanted to be part of a company with, and making a company for that very first production. So since then, I've had the joy of working, so closely with Caroline Dunphy, who's the other co-artistic director of Belloo, and Catherine Kelly, who's our dramaturg and chair. And we've got the marvelous Kristen Maloney as our managing producer now as well. So we've always been a team of four. The fourth has changed a few times, but it's a really strong and supportive and loving way to work. So, yep, that's a little bit about me.
Yeah, I remember, I guess, supporting one of your earlier plays,
Yes.
probably, it'd be over 15 years ago now. So, and it was pre-Belloo. So it's been a wonderful journey for you to get to this really tight group of creative women together in Belloo. Mm.
Yes, thank you, Ruth. I remember that. I think you were at the Judith Wright, and I had a fresh ground residency um, for Motherland before
Motherland.
Belloo. Yes, that was when I
Yes.
first met Caroline.
Uh,
Marvelous, yeah.
Well, let's talk a little bit more about what's on your mind when you're writing. So, as a playwright,
Mm.
talk us through how the work might begin. What draws you into a story? How do you choose that story?
There are so many stories. It's there. One of the things that I do with Belloo is to try and always have at least 5 spinning at the same time. So we think of it as having 5 plates spinning, because you never know what presenter is going to be interested in and what will suddenly get traction and go into being. So there's always many works evolving and being developed at the same time. For me, what attracts me is true stories, social justice. I'm really passionate about that. And also things that, things that have a potential to make our world a little bit better or change people. So those are the things that draw me personally, but as a playwright, but as a co-artistic director of Belloo, I have to be mindful of what works are going to suit the company and what works are going to be interesting for audiences and for touring.
Sounds great. I'm just, someone has joined us. Erica has joined us. Welcome, Erica.
Hi.
We thought there may have been a glitch, but then it may be so rainy people hadn't joined. But that's okay. We're going to record this anyway, so you know, Erica, and it'll be available for on demand on our website. So let's continue with the chat. So when do you start thinking about who the audience for what you're writing is, and where that final script might end up, where it might be performed?
The story always comes first, so that's the starting point. But I've written a lot for specific venues. So oftentimes as a company, we go and pitch ideas to presenters and venues. And if somebody likes an idea, or if I've pitched to an AD and they want to commission it, then suddenly I'm writing for their particular venue and their audience and their tastes, their season, or it's like you have to have those things in. So in that case, in a commission case, it's very early that I'm considering all of those aspects and size and demographic and et cetera. But if it hasn't got a place to go yet, if it's purely an idea that we're working on, then my aim as a writer is to give it as much opportunity as possible. So to make it as compact and tourable as I can as a writer. Once you're in the room and you start playing and you start working with other collaborators, it'll start blooming and burgeoning and getting bigger, and that's always the case. But I try to keep it manageable in the beginning, sort of. Yes.
So if you have someone who's co-commissioned and I guess what's the balance and artistic relationship there with your company as you're writing the script, their desires and their audience, and how do you marry those things together?
It's challenging, to be honest. It works differently different times. So for instance, we've been lucky to have 3 shows on at Brisbane Festival over the years, and knowing that you're making work for a festival makes it a bit different to if you're making it for a small intimate theatre space, or if you're making it for a main stage company. Festivals kind of want things a bit different, and they want a bit of spectacle, and they want so even if I'm doing a 2-hander for touring, it still needs to have those other surprising elements to be festival worthy, I guess. So it's balancing those needs And of course, if you have a commissioning partner in there who's putting lots of money in, then they're going to be saying, this is how we want it, and this is what we want. And they're going to be looking at every draft and every iteration and coming along to developments. And they're going to be saying the direction they want it to go in, which may not be the direction that we envisaged for it. So there can be a bit of push-pull there. But basically, my ethos has always been to try everything. So whatever someone suggests, if someone comes in and says, oh, I want you to, tip this upside down and get rid of this scene and put in another character doing blah, my reaction might be that my heart falls and I'm going, that's a terrible idea, but I will always go, okay, well, I'll give it a try and let's see. And I'll give it a try. And then I'll come back and say, well, actually, that didn't work because putting that extra character in just tipped the scales and it made it ruined the balance of whatever it is, but you've tried it and you can explain and demonstrate why you're not going ahead with that. And I find that's really important with collaborating partners and commissioning partners and things, that you never shut them down. You never just go, oh no, we don't want to do that. You look at what they've suggested, see if there's a way you can make it work, because sometimes it's something that will be utterly brilliant, which did happen with Back to Belloo. So that's which we'll talk about in a bit, but yeah, it can be a marvelous surprise what comes up. And yeah.
Well, you've sort of covered some of this next question for me, but it's about the practical considerations when you're doing that, the cast size for touring, the technical requirements that you might have to pack in the truck, how long it is for the audience out there, whether it's got an interval or not, all of those questions. At what point, I guess, do you start making those kind of decisions?
The cast size is really, really early, because that's who I've got in my head as I'm writing. And I often do write with particular actors in mind. So even if they don't end up doing it, I can hear their voices and I can see them, and I have a vision of how it's going to be. So yes, cast size I pretty much know very early, and I also do a lot of doubling. So if it is a big cast, it's always being written so that actors can play multiple roles, and it can be a compact show even with a large number of characters. So not a big cast, a big character list. So in terms of the technical things, that's really more a director's role and Caroline's role. So to look at how we're going to fit everything into, and how we're going to have the vision and the stage the way that she's imagining, but also make it tourable. And what I've learned is to just put in whatever I'm seeing in my head into the script, and then Caroline will read it and go, oh my goodness, you've written that the boy leaps out of the train and hangs suspended for the next scene. How on earth am I going to do and I go, oh, it's just a feel, it's an idea. I'm not expecting there to be rigging and him to be flying. It's just a moment of suspension, and then Caroline will work her magic with the other designers, and they'll find a way that we get that feeling without actually lifting off.
Sounds like a fantastic partnership between the two of you.
I'm very lucky.
Creative trust, if you like. You both trust each other, and will move forward and back depending on what's best for the work.
That's right. Yeah.
I know that you've got Rovers, or a little snippet of Rovers there, and that's a really tourable production. We might.
Yes.
Do you think? Do you want to just have a look at share and see if you can do that? I know it's two wonderful women who toured around the country with Rovers, and it's such a small, compact production. It's Worth
It is.
worth a little bit of a look.
Let's have it.
Remember when? I remember everything stretched out on the roof, looking at the stars. Red dirt under our nails. Wild women in our hearts.
Fantastic.
There
So
you go.
that one, fantastic, Roxanne and
Yes.
Barbara together. They must have had such fun on the road. I know it was
We did.
around for a couple of years touring.
Yes, it was. It was originally written in 2018. Yes. And it went on at Norpa first, and then it went to Mullaney, and then to Brisbane Festival. And then we toured it again with Critical Stages, and it had a big national tour, but COVID hit. So we had the tour of all tours that got stopped and started and stopped again. And there were many things we did with that show, but I thought in terms of people interested in writing for touring, it's a nice one to model as how we went about that. So Barb, I was talking to, and she, marvelous actor, and had no work that year, which was just criminal in my opinion. And Caroline was doing a film, and she was on set with Roxanne, and discovered that Roxy was working as a security guard in a hospital because she had no acting work apart from this film. And Karen and I both saw each other and went, we have to do a show for, and it was like, oh my goodness, these two, yes. And then when we approached them, it turned out that they were the dearest of friends, and that they had worked together nearly 30 years ago on one of their first productions, and they toured Australia with that. And so they were super keen to work together again, and we built the entire show for them and around them. So it was, nobody else can ever play those parts. It's Barb and Roxy, it's their show. They explore their ancestry, their family stories, wicked imaginings. It's deeply personal and made because we wanted a vehicle for these two brilliant artists who weren't getting work at the time. And it was fantastic. Within months of that opening show and being at Brisbane Festival, both of them were in demand and back on our stages and being getting at least a portion of the work that they should be. So when we had that tour postponed because of COVID, we went, this is terrible, because Barb and Roxy were going to be employed by us for the year, and now that wasn't happening. It was, there's nothing coming back to them. And so we ended up making webisodes, and we took them out on the road to all these different locations and filmed them and created little short docos, and also a half-hour documentary which SBS took on, and then had on SBS On Demand for 2 years, plus they played it. So that was another way to keep it alive and keep it going. And so then when we came back to it the following year, again, as we started in Darwin, and the second day we were in Darwin, COVID arrived in Darwin for the first time, and Darwin was being locked down, and we managed to fly out before the lockdown, but then it went to Victoria, and then of course Victoria got locked down. It was just like everywhere we went. Those were the times, we all remember them. But it was such a lovely model, and we built a school show version of it so that Roxy and Barb can actually do a school's version if they want to, that's even more compact and could go with just them in their car. They don't have to have up, and someone to operate the sound. But yeah, that's it. Super easy. Yeah. So that was a really lovely one to do. Yeah.
What I love about that story is that the initial investment that you made in creating the work and all that time that, and heart that people put into it has kind of come through in various different ways. And, it still lives on. I know talking to Barbara at the Matilda Awards, she still loves that show and absolutely would do it again in an instant.
Yeah. So, yeah.
Let's talk about Belloo, because that's Back to Belloo. So let's talk about Back to Belloo, because that was premiere late last year. It's a story that follows the refugee family living in Billawheeler, hence the Back to Belloo. And they were removed from their home. People will remember they were placed in an immigration detention centre, and that sparked a absolute powerful campaign to bring them back home to Belloo. And it's the place where they'd built their lives, been there for 5 years, I think. Mm. I guess what drew you to that story?
So I was following the campaign and signing petitions and doing whatever, but the actual catalyst for this as a play wasn't me. It was another theatre maker, Matt Sholton, and he tells the story that he read about the family and he was so appalled knowing that there were these little girls locked up, and he wanted to do something desperately and contacted, I think it was the Billawheeler Library, and said, "Can you, I'm a theatre director. I'm in Brisbane. Can I? Is there someone I can speak to?" And they gave him Angela Frederick's contact details, and she was the key face of the campaign and pivotal within that campaign. And so he wanted to make a verbatim play, and he set about doing interviews and things. And then a year later, whenever you're trying to do something like that on your own, it's really hard. And he had about 20 hours worth of interviews, and he asked me if I'd come on and consider writing it, which I was very thrilled to do. And then Belloo came on to produce it, and he moved to Melbourne and got a full-time job and wasn't able to continue, but we kept it going and took it over. And so that was where it began. So I can't take credit for that starting idea. I did continue doing interviews. So I ended up with hundreds of hours of interviews. I kept with the idea of the verbatim nature of the text because it felt really important to use people's actual words and their real stories in such an important personal story. And it's interesting because the campaign took 4 years to get them home, and the play took 4 years to make. So it felt like it was an absolute labor of love. There was no commissioner or anything for it. We were just, applying for things, starting wherever we could, and it was so important that we had to begin with, this all began when Priya and Nades were still in detention. So the interviews and things were happening while they were in detention, and it was really the pressing, trying to get them home. And then I had the great privilege of being at the airport with Matt to welcome them home when they came back to Billawheeler, and kept going back to Belloo to visit them and to visit the campaigners. So I felt incredibly blessed and honoured to be able to forge those friendships and to count them as dear friends now. And part of that meant ensuring that they were happy with where the play was going. So even before we had any presenters or any partners in it, we would take a team of actors and hire cars and take everyone to Belloo and do rehearsed readings for the community so that they could respond, see what we were doing, get a feel for it, let us know what they thought, and we could make sure we had their wholehearted endorsement every step of the way. So we ended up making 3 trips to Belloo with actors and doing 3 rehearsed readings there. And then on top of that, I went on my own many other times. So it was, it was a long labor of love, but so worth it to have the endorsement and support of the people whose story it was.
Yeah, I hadn't heard that story before, but I'm interested to know, I guess when you first started doing all those interviews, you didn't know how it would end because the ending wasn't in sight at that point.
Yeah, and I was imagining when I started that it would be a call to action to get the family home, like it was going to be a that sort of a play. And then when they got home, it was, oh, great, we have an ending. And then, you know, things happened after they got home and it was, oh, do we keep going here? And because life doesn't finish, it's not neat and tidy like that. And so there were more and more interviews and more people coming and saying they wanted to talk about it. And Priya and Nades telling their story finally for themselves and things. And so it just, even to the point of when we were finally in rehearsals for it, and 3 weeks out from opening, I had somebody who was a key member of the team saying, I haven't told my story yet, and I think it's really important, and I want to tell it to you now, and I think it should be in the play. And that's really tricky, you know, it's how much you can include and how you can change things. And anyway, yes, so it is a whole challenge. And
that paring down all of those elements to those stories and people's perspectives from their own space into, you know, something that has a beginning, a middle, a climax, and an end, you know, that is a script. It's a huge job. It
was massive. It was massive. The biggest thing I've ever done. And paring it down so that it ran for, I think, 70 minutes, because honestly, I have, you know, the transcripts of all the interviews. This could have been a 5-week show. It could have gone forever. Talk about endurance theatre.
That would be, that'd be interesting. There's probably a spin-off, as they say in TV.
Yeah. I mean, it's the sort of thing you could do a doco, and you could have all the other bits that get attached.
So, I clearly understand that the conversations with the community and with all the people involved and from all the different angles, that was so important. How did that influence the direction and the ultimate design of the work and the tourability of it, in fact?
It definitely influenced not so much the design, I don't think. Actually, yes, it did. Sorry. So basically, what we realized was that one of the pivotal elements that we had from all of this material was people's personal iPhone footage of things. And so when Priya and Nades gave us some of their files of things they'd filmed while in detention, and Angela shared hers, and Simone and Bronwyn, and suddenly we had all of these shaky cam, somebody on their phone filming a moment of trauma or of joy or of whatever. And also this huge amount of media attention that the family had. So there were also all these news reports and 7:30 reports on the project, and Australian story, and all those different things. So there was so much material there. But the handheld camera, the handheld phone felt really important to include, so that we weren't just having actors pretend they were being deported, or we weren't trying to reenact. And so we let a lot of those things live in the film stuff, in the projection, and had our actors move between being the character and being themselves, narrating the character and saying, and then this happened. And so they could play those two parts. They could speak directly to the audience as themselves, the actor, and then go back into character. So yeah, that was, once we knew that we definitely had to have that, then that shaped a lot of different things. That it meant we needed a set that could be projected on, that could fully come alive with projection. And we needed, obviously, really fabulous video designer and all of those things. So yeah, that was great.
I got to say, I loved the cockatoos.
Yes.
That was just so Belloo.
Yeah. Well, that was one of our early developments. We took Sean Charles, who's a videographer. He's also an amazing playwright and 100 other things. But one of the things he does beautifully is video work. And so he did our webisodes for Rovers, and we took him with us on one of the early creative developments to Belloo, and he got himself a drone. And so he did heaps of the footage we show in the play of Belloo was his footage that he filmed with us during that development. So just getting that landscape and those trees filled with corellas, the whole sky is filled with them. It was fabulous.
It was a stunning moment at the start of the show. I remember just going, oh wow, that's amazing. And having been to Belloo a few times,
you recognised it.
It's just yep, that's Belloo.
Yeah, wonderful.
The actors that you chose, I guess, in some ways they were playing.
So we've got Nigel with a hand up. Should we?
Oh, yes.
Yeah. Sorry, if you don't mind, be just making an observation, if that's okay, about Back to Belloo in particular. I mean, I was looking at your website for Belloo, Katherine, and your vision is so inspiring to bring people and stories out of the shadows. And I think, of course, the story of Back to Belloo itself was a national and international story. So we weren't necessarily bringing the story itself out of the shadows, but you brought the people out of the shadows. You brought the community out of the shadows. You highlighted the story as it affected a local community, as well as the protagonists who are so deeply affected. And it was very moving. But I suppose my question, if I can just try and frame it, is someone who's done a lot of community storytelling over the years. I mean, I think there are parallels to be drawn around what you did with the story of Back to Belloo, and how can other writers and theatre companies use those techniques to tell stories that are universal to Queensland, to Australia, because they touch so many powerful emotions in what living in, especially in regional areas, means. I mean, did you extrapolate what you did with Back to Belloo, or could you talk to that in terms of what other people can do?
I will do my best. I think it's a beautiful observation, and thank you for that, Nigel. I think that you can't just waltz in and waltz out again. So that would be the biggest thing, is that it's not just visiting once and collecting stories and disappearing and going and making a work. It is going back and back and back again, and calling and phoning and and emailing, and it's building trust and relationship, and that's so vital that it's not just you're not extracting something from them for your own purposes. you're giving something back and also making a piece of art, a piece of theatre that will hopefully engage and inspire other people too. So that for me is the biggest thing. If you don't like it, it all depends what sort of story you want to tell. And for instance, if you were to say to me, oh, we think we'd like you to do something like that in Roma, like I'm just picking a place out of my head, I wouldn't know what the Roma stories are. I wouldn't know if any of them were going to have a universal sort of impact or be something that could live outside that town. But you need to make a connection first, and you need to hear a story that moves you and that makes you want to dig deeper and makes you want to go visit and spend that time. And then you are going to be investing a huge amount of time and effort into that place and into those people. So it needs to mean something to you, and you need to know that you want to give it back to them. So that if they say to you, like if at any time Priya and Nadez had said to us, actually, we've been in the spotlight enough, we don't want to do this, that would have been it. It wouldn't have mattered how many years we'd done it. It wouldn't have mattered how many tens of thousands of dollars we'd spent. It would be, that's it. This is their story. This is for them. So that's a hard thing as an artist when you invest yourself and all of your energy. Sometimes you want to have more control. So that's the tricky thing. But I don't know how. So yeah, I don't know how you go to a place you don't know, like you go to a community you don't know, and decide to make a story with them unless you have an invitation. So for instance, one of the plays I was asked to write was from a Japanese theatre company, and they wanted to create a play for the Tokyo Festival prior to the Tokyo Olympics. And they wanted a play about a small town outside of Tokyo called Akaruno. And they asked me to write it. And I'm not Japanese and I don't speak Japanese. And but they said, what we'd love you to do is to base it on some folk tales from the area that are written that are created from that area. They're about this area. And so they sent me the Japanese folk tales. We had them all translated. I then wrote English versions of, I wrote in English play versions of these folk tales, got them translated back into Japanese, sent them back, and they ended up putting on a production in this town of these folk tales. We didn't get to see them because it was COVID and Japan was shut, the borders were shut, but the production went ahead, and with social distancing and everybody masked and everything else, but it did manage to be staged. But that's one where it was a community and a particular region that I never got to visit because of COVID, but where I was asked to create something for them using their impetus. It is very odd though that I did it. Like I can imagine all the eyebrows raised about a white woman writing Japanese folk tales for the stage, but yes, I was asked to do it, and I was gifted the folk tales, and anyway.
I guess in some ways you're open to work with others in that way, and I'm sure they brought the authenticity of the yes. Japanese experience to it.
Yeah, that's right. They certainly did. Yeah.
Did you had another video that you wanted to show. Was that Belloo? Or?
It is. This one, how are we for time? This one's, so one of the things, couple of things first for Back to Belloo to set, sorry. One is that it ended up being a major festivals initiative work. So we did it for the first, I think, 2 years or 3 years on our own. And then Louise Betts Senior at Brisbane Festival became very involved. She was an absolutely wonderful champion and advocate for it. Queensland Theatre Company came on and wanted to do it. And it got major festival initiative funding. And that meant that it went from being a show that could be performed in a town hall for a community very, very simply, to a show that was now a major festival show and needed to have major festival elements and size and all of those things. So at that point, this is where when I mentioned earlier that at one point we had a commissioner or a co-commissioner or producer who came up with an idea that was just brilliant. And that was Louise saying that she wanted Menaka Thomas to be in it. And Menaka is a wonderful, wonderful singer. She's Indian, Tamil, and we already knew about her and wanted to include her, and actually were including her. She was co-composing alongside Guy Webster. So we had her voice in it. And Louise said, she needs to be on stage. I want her on stage. And it was, okay, but budget for extra performer, eek, all of those things. Anyway, all of that happens, but it was the most wonderful gift to have Menaka on stage. So you'll see her in this little clip here. The other thing we did with Back to Belloo was we were really clear all along that if we were doing the production in a festival, we had to have a community night for the people that this show was for. So opening night, we brought Priya and Nades and the Belloo women and campaign team all came to see it. On our community night, we invited people who were asylum seekers, refugees, organisations. We had this wonderful, wonderful community night of sharing, and we held a panel at the end of it where we talked about a whole heap of issues from the show. So this little clip is from that community night, but it gives you a taste of the show and that sort of community work. So I'm just going to click share and do this one for you. Okay, is that big enough or do you need me to make it bigger?
I think make it bigger, yeah.
Okay, there we go.
I think Back to Belloo is actually about love.
I was very touched by it.
It was very heartwarming and moving. It touched me personally as well.
Put a face to a story.
It's a love story about two beautiful humans that had already survived a lot of intense tragedy.
And I could really feel Priya's emotions and Nadesh's struggles as a father, as the captain of the ship.
I'm a migrant myself, so I can relate to the story. Sometimes it's really, you feel hopeless and helpless, and I think that this play brings everyone together.
It really moved me emotionally to understand how people of very similar heritage to mine, what struggles they're going through, and really motivates me to learn more and put my voice in to support them as well.
I'm like such an advocate for these powerful stories.
I think that was an important work. I felt like I wanted to advocate more.
It's very inspiring, makes you feel that you can do so much more for the community and help people seeking asylum and refugees. We can actually come together as a community and see who is among us and really listen up to their stories, open up our heart and our mind, because each of one of us has a story to tell. And in there, we can really build a meaningful connection and truly support one another.
Stories like these are important for people to recognize, understand, and empathize. humanizes, and I feel that these stories bring us together.
It's important to take this play everywhere in Australia.
It's a story of love, hope, determination, and the belief that everyone has a place called home.
There we go.
Amazing. So many beautiful things that were said by people attending. That was gorgeous.
Yeah, it was a really lovely. It was a beautiful night. It was incredible to share it with such a beautiful audience. Yeah, we were very lucky.
So where is Back to Belloo going? Touring?
We are off to Darwin next, and that is in August for Darwin Festival. That is the end of our major festival round. So we then have to, with the major festival initiative funding, the bad part of it is that you have you can't take it anywhere for 12 months until 12 months have passed since the last performance in the festivals. So so basically August 27 is when we can start touring it outside of the festivals, which we're busy building now, that tour. But yes, so Darwin is our next point, and then we'll have a year's break before taking it back.
Well, I'm hoping it tours right across Australia. I think it is a great piece.
Thank you.
I will just open it up to our two guests and see if there's another question at all, Erica or Nigel. No, covered it all. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. It's been amazing to talk to you. Some wonderful things you've said, and I'm sure that anyone catching the on-demand version of this will have missed an opportunity to talk to you direct, but we'll get so much out of what you've said. I think Erica's just typing something. I'll have a look in a second.
Sure.
I guess, do you have any final thoughts? If I'm a brand new playwright, where do I start?
The starting place, as a brand new playwright, the starting place is probably the story that scares you. I think they're the ones that are most urgent. But that's just a for what it's worth, a starting thing. If you're a starting playwright and you're wanting to produce your work and to have your work travel and tour and things, then I would strongly urge you to find your tribe and find your people, like I found Caroline and Katherine and Kristen. It is the most incredible joy and honor when you find the people who understand you and who speak your language, and you all together build something much greater than you would on your own. So that's a really fabulously important thing. Because I know there are so many wonderful writers, and I do read as many play scripts as I can, published, produced plays and also unproduced plays. And there's just brilliant scripts that have won awards, all sorts of things, and they've never been produced yet. And it breaks my heart. It's just awful. And I go, if I didn't have Belloo, that would be me too. So it's I think finding those people and those connections is so important to get your work out there, because otherwise you're cold calling, sending it out, trying to get someone to read it, and it can be really soul destroying. Even if you're not emerging, you can be a really established playwright and still have that problem. I did have to note something down I wanted to have a chance to say. Okay. I wrote that I would recommend you write the work that you want to see, and don't think you have to follow a formula. the world needs hope. We need to build communities if we're going to make it through the next few decades. Be part of making real connections and meaningful change. So that's just my little what I believe, and what I'd say to people is find your tribe, find your community, and help other people find theirs. And it's that can be pretty magic.
Thank you for that. It's wonderful. Really good thoughts. Erica's just got one little question, which is, what's your upcoming projects? I know you had lots of spinning plates at the start. So
thank you, Erica. We have 2 projects we're developing at the moment. One is called Oarfish, and the other one is The Crab, the Lizard, and the Upside Down Woman. Oh, Upside Down Girl. Sorry, it used to be a woman, now it's a girl. Anyway, we've got a newsletter coming out about them very soon, but we're developing those at Redland Performing Arts Centre, partnering with them to develop the works. And one of them is another transcultural international work, working with Japanese artists and Australian. And the other is a children's and family work, where the constraint that I'm trying to grapple with is our managing producer has requested that I don't use words, if I can not use words if possible, or as few as possible, because she'd like it to tour internationally and not be constrained by English language. So that's a
challenge.
That's a challenge, an exciting challenge.
Yeah.
And I can see Erica's comment. Thanks, Erica.
Well, we might wrap it up there. Katherine, look, so grateful for you sharing your insights tonight. It's been a delight to talk to you.
Thank you.
We've gone the full hour, which is amazing. I thought
Wonderful.
we'd probably go a little bit short, but no. So I hope anyone looking at this on demand really gains a lot from what you've said. And I certainly have. I've learned so much. I almost want to write my own play. You never know.
Oh, thank you. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
And thanks, Nigel and Erica. Okay.
I will share the closing slides so that we make it all very neat. But thank you so much, and we'll talk to you again soon.
Wonderful. Thank you.